Any questions about species presentations next week, how we can help you? So you've got a presentation and a report. Okay. Thursday is career fair. Even if you know exactly what you're going to do, you're going to win the lottery, you're going to inherit grandfather's farm, whatever you think is going to happen, you're going to marry well and not have to worry about a job. I encourage you to go anyway. Pick up a highlighter. Zach Fly, one of my favorite students, was wandering around the building, and a guy from ADM said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Just find the bathroom." And said, "Are you going to the career fair?" "No." I said, "Well, I'm going to be there. Why don't you stop by?" Stop by, got an interview. The next day, got a job or an internship offer. Interned with them. After the internship, got a job offer. You never know what might happen. And I passed around the sheet again for Five Rivers and Seaboard that they're willing to feed you lunch or dinner. Please go. Nothing worse than those organizations coming on campus and nobody's interested. Even if you're just interested for the food, do that and then get out your phone and play Angry Birds or something while they're speaking. That's a really good thing to do. Dr. Hickman's a professor in this college. She's a professor in NREM. Before that, she was a professor in plant and soil science. She has a unique perspective, I think, on almost every issue because she's been a high school biology teacher, college professor, is very active in her community, and she'll be talking in different, from different perspectives today about that. They're loaded with questions, but we might, and we looked at the Enid Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals website last Thursday, so we know a little bit. We'd like some introductory remarks from you, and then they have all kinds of questions they want to try and nail you down.
Good. Well, thanks for letting me come here today. I do have a unique perspective. One of the things that Dr. Weeds did mention is that I actually am a farmer and rancher. I work with my nephew and raise cattle, and then we also raise wheat or sort of Sudan or whatever. You know, we had soybeans once, so. I come from that perspective too. I was raised on a farm, learned how to drive a tractor in 7th grade, and drove it and put myself through college working for my daddy, doing that. And so I come from that kind of a perspective. But then also, when I finished with my PhD at K-State, I worked on a grazing system stocking rate study with cattle production, and I got a job down in South Central Texas at Temple, Texas, if you know where that's at. And taught at University of Mary Hardin-Baylor, if you're familiar with that. It's in Belton, Texas. So I taught that there for a few years. But as I was doing that, I was coming off being a PhD student, 4 years of my life, working in the field, doing research, taking classes. And I got out and I went to this community and I realized I've got to contribute to society. And so I looked around for organizations to be able to become a part of. And we would always go to the library on Saturdays or Sundays. And so we'd go to the library, and they had this board there of all of these rescue animals. Invariably, they were large dogs, large black dogs that were needing a home. And I decided, it was kind of like with my PhD. I was either going to work with plants or I was going to work with birds. And I had funding to work with plants, so I worked with plants and cattle grazing. So when I chose something to work on in the community, I chose, okay, it's either going to be the library or it's going to be animals. And there happened to be an opening at the local rescue facility or rescue organization for someone on their board of directors, and I joined that. And so it's that was over 20 years ago, and I've pretty much stayed on a board of directors of a local welfare organization since then. I've served on the Enid Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, so it's a local organization. So when I'm going to say ESPCA or Enid SPCA, it's a local organization. It has no affiliation whatsoever with ASPCA. So when you see anything associated with SPCA or Humane Society, if it's a local organization, they do not receive fundings from the national organizations. So they're independent of it. Those names, Humane Society and SPCA, they aren't trademarked names at all, so they're open for use by any organization. And so the organization I'm affiliated with, there already was a humane society in town when the Enid SPCA started, and it started just over 20 years ago. I've been on the oh, lovely. So I've been on the board of directors in Enid for 15 years, and I've served as president for just over 10. So in that, I've done a wide variety of activities and things, and so I'm here to just kind of open it up for questions that any of you might have concerning this, and I'll certainly fill in a lot of information and experiences as we go through. I'll just say, so you looked at the website? Everybody's
Yes.
looking at the video, or they're looking at this? So that's where we're working.
It follows
We won't be
this.
able to capture it in class.
Understood. What would you like to do?
It
follows
It won't
this.
say, we put that in the middle, it's gonna follow that.
Yeah.
How did we do that last time?
He had it,
Because it was
In the
in the
middle.
middle, and
and the camera
it
was
was
in the middle.
slow.
The
So if
person
we
was
can
in the
pass it
middle?
around.
Or the camera wasn't on there.
Yeah, the camera was at the end and the thing was in the middle, that's how you captured it the last time.
Let's put the mic here and put the camera down there
Okay.
and go this way.
That
Oh,
works.
there
Sorry
you go.
about that. I thought
Oh,
it
no,
was-
that's okay.
Well, I was.
This is a new thing for me.
This is Hans. Hans, my graduate assistant. I was sorry, I was getting on his
That's okay.
case. Sometimes we do that with graduate students. I do.
I
I'm
do, me
sorry.
too.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yes.
So you looked at the SPCA website, yeah?
And you all wanted to adopt Muso Moko, or who was it that?
I don't know.
But-
They were all cute.
I know they are cute, aren't they? So there are so many things I can say about the SPCA, and so I kind of I'm going to just mention a few things about it as we go, and hopefully your questions will kind of let us move in a different direction. So let me just give you this overview of the Enid SPCA and some of the activities we have. So Enid SPCA, as I said, is just over 20 years old. It was founded by two housewives, and they take claim to fame as being housewives. They were sitting around the kitchen table going, how can we take care of all these homeless pets? Because they would be the ones in the neighborhood that would keep somebody would say, oh, I found this puppy, oh, I found this cat, oh, I found this dog. And they would take it in, and then they would have 5, and then their husbands would go, okay, we cannot keep these, and we don't have money.
Did anything exist before?
There was a
city
local,
pond?
there was a city animal shelter that we might refer to as the pound. I try to not say that. I just try to say the animal shelter is the animal control for the city of Enid. And then there was a humane society. I think Enid Humane Society was there too. It was also a nonprofit. So nonprofits funded totally by donations or grants.
But these two women.
These two
set
women were
another
not.
organization.
Yeah, they set up a whole new organization. Humane Society was taken, so they decided they would just say SPCA, and so they named it Enid SPCA. And within probably, I think one of their husbands walked by, dropped a $100 bill on the table, and said, "Here, start your fundraising." And that's how it kind of started with them. And today, one of the women is the executive director, and she works in our building. We now have two buildings that are on the same piece of property. We are now at over a $500,000 organization. So when we look at our funding, we're going to be we're upwards of $600,000 to $700,000 right now, and that has grown from $100 in a year. And so it's a very well-respected organization in the state of Oklahoma. We are invited very often to different, to Tulsa or Oklahoma City, or somebody, the Kirkpatrick Foundation, whoever. The city of Oklahoma City, they're inviting us and using us actually as the example. Because I see, Dr. Weeks had you read why euthanasia rates at animal shelters have plummeted. Enid has, in 2010, so that's just under 10 years ago, in 2010, the city of Enid had about an 80 to 85% euthanasia rate. Okay, so 85% of the animals that came in were killed. That was over probably 3,000 to 3,500 animals, right? So do the math. That's 10 a day, right? So think about having a staff member have to kill 10 animals in a day, every day, right? Not necessarily something that we've been raised to do, unless they're a rodent or an insect or a snake in some people's instances. And I'm not
saving
making.
it, but you're not trying to save.
We don't save those. We aren't saving those. We're dealing with mainly the cats and the dogs. Might have a ferret, might have a guinea pig, might have a hedgehog some days. We've had chickens. Anyway, but we're set up mainly for cats and dogs.
And domestic animals, not wild animals.
No, we will refer any wild animals to a wildlife rehabilitator, and we have several in the community that we can rely on.
Okay, so you kind of have a scope,
Right.
right?
We've helped with horse rescues, but we had to find somebody who could house them, get the feed. We weren't set up for that. We didn't have veterinarians on staff that could deal with the horses. We don't have veterinarians on staff, but we have veterinarians that we can rely on. We currently have a retired vet who comes in and does surgeries for free. We have another vet in town who comes in, or she will come and she will provide us with information, and we basically get to use her drug license. So she's our. If we have a vet on staff, it would be her non-paid position. The organization in 2010, so we worked close. We did not work well with animal control in 2010. Since then, we have written grant proposals and gotten funding, and we have spayed or neutered over 10,000 animals. Okay? That's in less than 10 years. Most of those are low cost spay and neuters. People either didn't have to pay. They paid $10 or they paid $30 to $40, right? The euthanasia rate at the city animal control has now gone to, let's do live release, and that's about 85%. So in 2010, it was 85% kill rate. Now it's about 85% live release. Okay? So that's what we have contributed, along with other organizations within the city of Enid. And there's other groups playing in that animal welfare, animal kind of shelter type area in Enid too.
Let's start with questions then.
Yes, ma'am.
How many dogs and cats can you house at one time?
We're set up. Our facility can house about 45 animals if we have more than one in a kennel. So we could have 45 dogs. We can have, I'm going to say up to 50 or so cats. But we have started more fostering of animals. And at one point in time, it was not this month, it was in June, we had 150 animals in our under our control. And many of those were in foster.
Talk about how that works.
So foster is you have to have a family or a person who has the ability to care for that animal, a dog or a cat, or a litter of kittens or puppies, and the mother sometimes, and take care of them, and then be also willing to bring them to adoption events so they could eventually get adopted. Okay? So we take care of their health care, spay and neuter them, but we wouldn't pay for their food necessarily, or their place to live.
And our picture would still be up.
And there's pictures still up, usually.
I want Coco Moco.
Yep.
What would the foster person say? Hey, you need to bring him in because somebody wants to adopt Coco Moco?
Or we would say the foster family will be here on Saturday at this adoption event. Can you come? You'll have to come look at them. Because we found that if the person wanting to adopt drives the meeting, they may not show. And we don't want to ever abuse the niceness of the foster family. They show up, nobody shows up to look at them. They just wasted some time, and we've already spent some of their time. So yeah, just say, go ahead.
So my name's Fallon.
Hi, Donna.
I want to know like the process of adopting.
Process of adopting.
Yeah.
So,
Like, how do you make sure they go to good homes?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so we used to have a much more stringent adoption, and so let me just mention this. So within the past 5 years, so prior to 5 years ago, so let's just say 2015, I'll just round up. In 2015 and prior to that, we had a 10-day quarantine period for our animals. So they would come into our facility and they were quarantined for 10 days because we were worried about what illnesses they might get from ours and what illnesses they might get from people or what illnesses they might give to ours. Well, we've worked really closely with OSU, OSU Shelter Medicine. So the OSU Vet School, OSU Vet School has a shelter medicine program, and we've worked closely with them. But we've also gotten grants and sent our staff they've gone to Austin, San Francisco, Denver, Kansas City, all over to be trained on shelter medicine and shelter issues. And at one of those workshops, the staff were taught, forget the quarantine. You don't need to do quarantine anymore. The faster those animals get into your place and out, the healthier those animals are going to be. Not only health-wise, but also emotional. Because there are some, batshit crazy dogs that come out of there. And
technical term.
yeah, it truly. You can walk in and they will have kennel aggression. You put them in they could be the nicest animal, and you put them in a kennel, and they're in that kennel. And our kennels they're indoors, outdoors. They have a little playtime in the yard, but it's so loud. It's just a stressful environment for them, and they end up acting out, and those are the ones we may end up having to euthanize. We try not to have to. We call ourselves a no-kill facility unless it's because of health or aggression. If we have an animal bite a person in our facility, that we will euthanize it because we cannot be held liable for a bite. And
So minimize that amount of time that you have them.
Yeah, we want to so we don't quarantine anymore. So I'm getting to your adoption thing. So we have animals come in. So they'll come into our shelter. We do an intake on them. We'll do, if they're a dog, we'll run heartworm. If they are a cat, we are doing a ringworm bath. So it's a lime sulfur dip. Smells like lime sulfur. Not a pleasant thing to have in your facility. We used to dip them and, just bathe the cat. That's what you're doing. But it's with a lime sulfur that's smelly, icky, gross, right? And it has to dry on them. Now, we learned at one of our things, you take a spray gun, kind of, and you spray it on there, and less stressful for the animal. It's rubbed into them. Boom, they're done. They dry. Cats get FIV tested. They get rabies. They get diphtheria, not diphtheria. They get distemper, parvo. So we'll do all that, and then they have to be spayed or neutered. So we will not let an animal go out of our care until they're spayed or neutered. They can go to a foster family, but they will not be adopted unless they are spayed or neutered, because we don't want them leaving and then they end up having a litter, because our whole goal is to minimize reproduction. If you minimize reproduction, you decrease euthanasia rates, right? So people would come in, apply for, and say they want that one, Moko Ono, whatever it was. They say we want that one, and they would come in, and we want them to meet them. But typically, what happens is we have people who come from out of state. They will drive. They'll see our office hours, and they'll drive, and they'll come in and say, "We were going to come. We want to look at this dog," and we'll have to say we can't guarantee they're going to be here, but we'll try. And so they come in. They interact with the dog or the cat. They fill out an application form. They can do that online or in person. We ask them who their vet is, or one, if they have other animals. If so, how many and what are they? Two, if they're neutered or altered, right? Because we don't want them also having litters, right? We ask them who their vet is. Well, actually, we contact their vet to see if they're really up to date on everything. because we don't want additional animals going to a household who can't support those animals. And then we also ask if you own or rent. And if you rent, we will contact the landlord to see if they will allow pets. And then, if you are on our no adopt list, because we have a no adopt list, then you could potentially adopt the animal.
And how would you get on the no adopt list?
On the no adopt list, you were one of the individuals who, before we changed our policy, could take the animal without it being altered, without being spayed or neutered, and you didn't bring it back. That's one. You have an animal that you adopted, and then something happened years later, you bring it back and you say you don't want it again. So if you're turning over animals because maybe the puppy cuteness grew out of them, then you shouldn't have another animal, right? You have too many animals in your home. You've had some complaint filed against you that's been confirmed. That would be our reason for no adopt. Right? Yeah. Yes, sir.
So this might be a little challenging, but how long would you say the average days when an animal is in your shelter?
It depends on their age. It depends on how cute they are. It depends upon their desirability as a breed, if it comes to a dog. It depends on how cute they are, if they're a cat, their personality. It depends on if they are showing some kind of aggression in the cage or in the kennel.
What's a desirable animal? What's an undesirable animal, at least right now?
Not black. So black cats, black dogs are not desirable. They are the highest euthanized animal, just based upon color. I would say breed-wise, if you had a litter of golden retrievers, a litter of lab puppies, a litter of German Shepherd puppies, boom, they're going. If you have an adult cat, it's going to stay. Because there's kittens, and cute kittens are so much cuter than adult cats, right? Adult cats have their personality already. Little dogs, oh my gosh. And this is going to sound bad, but we are in a commodity. We're a commodity-driven market, kind of, right? We're adopting out animals. So if we get a call, we have a very good relationship with Enid Animal Control now. So if Enid Animal Control, we'll go out and we'll actually go and say, okay, we want that one, that one, that one, that one, and then they might do a behavior on this one. It's kind of aggressive. Maybe we'll let them keep it. They aren't running out of space, so they don't have to euthanize today. So we'll let them keep it. We're gonna take the little ones because they're gonna be gone in less than 2 weeks, right? As long as we can get them spayed and neutered, so we can have people who say. So this is another thing we've done, is we're now allowing people to adopt them, but we keep them until they're spayed and neutered. So you could come in and say, I want that one, and you can sign the paperwork, pay the adoption fee. We keep them until it's been spayed or neutered. We'll actually bring a van in from Enid. I used to drive it. I'm too stressed to do that right now. I used to drive the van or load them up in my car early in the morning, and I'd drive them to the vet school. And in kennels, mind you, not running around. I did that once. That's never going to happen again. This little dog. It ended up on my dash. It's horrible. Anyway.
You talk about, and some people are surprised there's an adoption fee, but then you go through all those things that you do, and you're saying, gosh, that's cheap when you consider all the things that you do before that it's adopted.
Mm-hmm. And we don't even cover our costs, right. Usually. We have a higher adoption fee now than we ever have, which is typical, right? Because prices go up. But we're at over $100 for a large dog, and it's because it's been spayed and neutered. It's been heartworm tested. If it's had heartworm, we treated it. If it's had parvo, it's not going to get parvo. That's a horrible, horrible thing. So I guess to answer your question, it depends upon the desirability of the animal and the time of year. Yeah, so you would think that people may want to adopt when their kids are home from school. They do not. So June, July are horribly slow for adoptions. That's when we're really stressed financially. And August, it is tough. We were down to $4,000 in our bank account last month, and we're a $500,000 business. We have a payroll. We have $30,000 we need to come up with every month to function, and we had $4,000 in our bank account. It's horrible. It's so sad, and it gets stressful. So anyway, I'll just go this way. We have had animals that have stayed. Apollo, we had Apollo. Apollo stayed in our shelter for over 5 years. I wanted him euthanized. I thought that was not a life for an animal. He should not be. He was batshit crazy. I'm serious. I'm sorry. It's just true. A young family came in. They volunteered. The mother homeschooled. There were 3 daughters. They had a farm. They would volunteer, and they just got to know Apollo, and they came in and they said, "We want Apollo." So the little girl went through the Cesar Millan training. Cesar Millan is a big animal trainer.
What's his show?
Cesar Millan.
Never mind.
What is it?
The dog training show. You've not seen him?
The dog whisperer.
Is that what it's called?
So she went through that. She learned all the training. We had a woman who volunteered to help train him to be able to walk on a lead, blah, 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 right? They adopted him. He got to the point where he's on the farm, he's running around, he's good to go. He got out of the kennel. 5 years. I would have euthanized him after a year. Anyway. So I guess my point is that, can you imagine him? That's so expensive. I was just thinking that's one kennel he was a success in the sense that, he went to this family, but that was 5 years that kennel was occupied, and we could have rotated more through there. So anyway, he's been so patient. Go for it.
So your volunteer process, do y'all turn anybody away, or do y'all have to do a background check on them?
For volunteering?
Yeah.
So, very good question. So, okay, so if you're just a person coming in off the street, right, you're going to come in, you're going to fill out a volunteer thing. Before you can volunteer, you have to go through volunteer training, okay? We are doing a background check, basically. But if you come in and you have to do community service because of some court action, we have to know what that is. If it's illicit drugs, then we aren't going to have you come in because we have DEA-controlled drugs in our facility behind the 3 locks that you have to have it behind. But that's one. Other thing is that we do have, they've changed it now. We had a women's Department of Correction facility in Enid, and the women who were there long enough and were on good behavior, I guess, they could get a job and work, and they got paid a portion of a salary, but they got paid, and we actually have had 2 permanent employees come from that system, and it was amazing. It just really worked out. But again, there are things they can't do. It was a drug main rehab facility. We kind of altered our rules because these individuals were really good, hardworking. Come on. I'm sorry, cleaning kennels day in, day out it's exhausting. It is not for a person who's over 50 years old or 40 sometimes. So it's exhausting work. So they stayed with us, and they just are not allowed in the surgical suite. They can't go back there, right? And we have cameras, so.
And what's the kind of volunteer you'd be looking for?
That's a good question. We had a newsletter that just went out this past week that talked about all of the different volunteers. So we have volunteers for surgery, so they can come in and assist in surgery if they've had some, they have to go through some training. And that's going to be like a dayline thing. We have one vet who can do 15 spays and neuters in a day. So you're running through 15 animals, and that's kind of exhausting. We need people for off-site events. I'm sorry. I went to the state fair this weekend. There's a reason I don't work booths. I just can't work a booth. There's no way I can do that. So we need people who can go to off-site events to work that booth and help just kind of educate about. We need people to come in and clean. We need people to come in and just sit and play with the dogs and the cats. And when we do, we have this individual who will come in, and they will come in and they bring their children. They're homeschooled, and the children will come in and just read. They'll sit in the kennel and they'll read to the animals. It's adorable. Anyway, so there you go. Okay, yes.
So, like, if somebody brings in an animal, how do you, I don't really know you turn people away, but...
Good question.
Like,
Yeah.
how does that go down?
It depends. It's not, so this is not a black and white issue at all. It's always gray. So I'm just going to, this is going to sound horrible. If I bring an animal in, they're taking it. I'm president of the board. I donate a lot of money to them. They're going to take it. Isn't that horrible? It's true, right? It's how it works. So that's one. Sorry. Engaged real world. Other is we're going to try to take from animal control. Because animals, cats and dogs, are property. And we don't know if the animal that you're bringing in was your neighbor's dog and you just got mad and you want to bring it in, right? Because it barks too much. So we have to have some kind of proof of ownership, if you will, because we would be breaking the law too if we took that dog. So we try to mainly take from animal control, but we also have instances where, because at animal control they signed them over, or they surrendered them, or they were captured and they've been there the required 3 days. We also have individuals who we know, it's really sad when you are elderly and you don't have a family that can take your animals. We have people who will kind of work with us, or the family will, and we'll just take their pet in after they've passed away, or they have gone to nursing home or assisted living or hospice. We might work with them, especially if we've known them in the past, right? We want to be respectful, especially of those that have helped us in the past.
Fallon says there's this dog that's just hanging around her house. Can she pick up that dog and bring it?
No.
I was going to ask that because we had a stray come to our farm one day. And we posted asking if anybody
Right.
wanted, if anybody's missing it.
Right.
Well, we were going to keep it for a while until it started chasing our
The cow,
cows.
yes.
And we couldn't, so my mom took it to the one near us, and she was like, I don't know what to do with it, I don't want anything to happen, and which ours only takes them on certain days, but they said they would take him because he was like a younger dog, and they said his turnover rate would be
Adopted, right.
Which it was I think he was in there 2 weeks.
Right,
and he got
exactly,
adopted.
right. So, so in Enid, we take the city of Enid animals. So if it's like Payne County or like Stillwater. If you live outside the city limits and you try to bring an animal to the animal control in Stillwater, and you have to give them an address on where you live, and you're going to have to pay if you don't live in the city, right? Because they pay for it.
Well, I
tax
just
base.
had 2 dogs. I
Yes.
invested $40 in them
Right.
because I didn't want to get it by car. So.
Right, exactly.
And then my mom did bribe him a little bit. She's like, I'll give you a nice donation if you take this dog.
Exactly. And
Like,
that
I'm in
helps.
Pittsburgh, and I'm 30 miles from
Right.
here, but my mom was like, I don't care. I'll go buy you some dogs.
Absolutely.
But she's like, I can't. We have
Right.
more dogs.
And so another is that. So if we have someone call us and they have a litter of puppies, they're golden retrievers, right? We're taking them because we're gonna have them for a short period of time. We'll have somebody foster them. We'll have them for a short period of time, and we'll get that adoption fee. And we won't have especially if they turn over quickly, we won't have put that much money into them, so we can break even a bit. So yeah, it just totally depends. It's like, for instance, there was a big deal on Neighborhood Village. Anyway, there's this whole, I don't know if it's Facebook or whatever it is, but you can sign up to get alerts on things that are going on in your neighborhood, like cars getting broken into or whatever, or something, people walking by that look funny, I don't know. They had a thing that said there was a dog with a litter in a backyard of some house that people had moved out of. And then they said the SPCA won't take them because they don't know whose dogs they are. Well, it's true, we couldn't, because they needed to go to Animal Control, City of Enid, they're the legal group, they take them, they can transfer them to us. So it's kind of, yeah, have to jump through the hoops. Yes, ma'am. Bree?
Okay, so I have questions about like some of the programs on the website. So I don't know, like, because I also looked at the adoption thing and I saw the quarantine for 10 days, but if that's changed, I don't know if I was looking at the right thing. But like, do you guys do the food pantry?
Mm-hmm.
So is that something only like people that have adopted from you can partake in, or is that someone that like maybe is struggling that month and they want to keep their dog or cat? Like, how does that work, and does that affect like them adopting from you in the future? Like, if they've been coming to the food pantry, do you
Right.
have to like monitor that when they try to adopt?
So, the food pantry started because we had a lot of people donating food to us, and our animals were staying with us for a long time because they were with us for 10 days. We didn't want to feed them whatever food came in, because I don't know about you, you change an animal's diet, their digestive system shifts a bit. You don't want to have to deal with that in a kennel. And so we would feed them a pretty high quality diet to get them pretty healthy. But we had all these people donating food that was, Old Roy, whatever. Not to say that that's bad or anything, but whatever. It is lower quality. We would take that food then, and we would dump it in we just mix it all together, and we'd we have containers, and we would say, okay, if you need food, you can come and we'll give you food. Well, then it got to the point where we had people coming every week. Same people coming every week, right? Then we put it on limit once every 30 days. We can give you this amount. If we have someone that's been on that list for a long time and they're here every month, we aren't going to adopt to them. They don't need another animal in our household, right? Another thing that we've done with the pet pantry, there's the pet food pantry, is we won't let you participate if you haven't spayed and neutered your animals. So we kind of have that rule, because it used to be where I had more puppies. Well, then you shouldn't have any more dogs or cats or whatever. So yeah, so we put kind of that limit on it too. And if they don't come and spay neuter, then we will just say, yeah, we can't help you out. So it's kind of bad, because you had people who were driving up in really nice cars. So, just saying. Yes.
Do you all host any like spay neuter clinics for the community, or any like educational events about like the importance of spaying and neutering, and like different things like that?
So we have 2 spay and neuter programs. One is called SNP, right? Anyway, so I got no response out of that one. So SNP, spay, neuter, immunize your pet is what it was for. But that is one it's a low cost spay and neuter based upon income, and so we publicize that through the website. We've publicized that for years. We've done that for probably a dozen. And if you make, I don't know what the value is, but if you make so much of income or below that, then you're eligible to do that. And I think it costs about $40 to spay or neuter an animal. We also have grant-funded ones, and that's Impact, and those have been funded by PetSmart charities. And we've had varying ones. We've had some that were just dogs, and you had to live on the east side of Enid, because it was all driven by income, and they cost the person $10. Then we had it for all of Enid, and it cost $15. Then we had it for dogs and cats. 600 dogs, 600 cats. Now we're back to dogs. So we're probably on our last one on that. So that's the majority of our education is through our spay-neuter programs. We've cooperated with vets too in town, and they can do the surgery, and then charge the person that amount too, and then they get reimbursed. But education-wise, it's mainly just through those programs. We need volunteers. We need volunteers to do that. So yeah. Yes.
So like, going back to like the quarantine thing, since you don't do that anymore, and not having a vet on staff at all times, how do you prevent something like parvo outbreaks in the kennel?
Right. So one, we have very strict cleaning practices. So we use the proper chemical, not too much, because if you use too much and you don't hose it down, they'll get burns on their skin and their paws. So that has to be done properly. Two, if we have puppies, they do not go outside. So because you can get parvo in a yard, right? So we don't ever have any animals that might have parvo. They don't go outside. We have quarantine kennels where they can't have nose-to-nose contact, because that's where you can have that transmission too. But then it used to be where, and you may be familiar with this, but it used to be where if a dog got parvo, they were going to die, right? Or you were going to have to pay $600 at a vet to get them to treat. We can save a parvo puppy now with less than $60. Why? Because we go to shelter medicine trainings. And so we had someone go to a parvo workshop, and basically they came back with this protocol, and I think we've lost 2 cents. So we can do it now, and we do it with. It used to be where it takes a lot of hydration. It's basically dealing with the dehydration, because if they get dehydrated, boom, they aren't going to survive properly. But now you just hydrate them and give them, your good nutrients in that hydration. You do that in a vein with a catheter, and you leave them overnight. It used to be where people would come in every 4 hours and give them a subcutaneous injection for hydrating. Well, so you've got a staff member coming in, right? It's every 4 hours the animal's getting poked and prodded. And now that's what they do at the vets, and it's working. So yeah, it's amazing to me. So we aren't as fearful of parvo as we used to be. The biggest one is ringworm. Because you don't want animals going out of your facility that have ringworm, that can give a child ringworm, or an adult. Heaven forbid my husband gets ringworm, because that is not going to be a happy house at all. He's had it before, and it was not good from this litter of kittens that I was bottle feeding. It was bad. So yeah, does that help? Kind of. Heartworm's another one that's big. Because with heartworm, it takes so long for that treatment on those big dogs that they have to be in a kennel, and they can't run out and play. And oh, heaven forbid, they're one of the ones that go crazy. So
if you have dogs with heartworms, do you keep those on medicine for heartworms all the way up until they're heartworm free before they're able to be adopted?
We don't. Yeah, we could send them with it, but we have to make sure that adopter is going to be on it.
Is that a guideline for euthanasia?
Heartworm positive?
Yeah.
No, not anymore. It used to be if they came in heartworm positive and we got them from animal control, we'd send them back. And we don't do that as much anymore. One of the things that we're going to do, or we're doing more of right now, is the rescue wagon. You saw the van, maybe, the rescue wagon. So the rescue wagon is a van that we got from the Budweiser company. Not Budweiser. Coors company, Pope Distributing in, that's a big deal, trust me. Anyway, Pope Distributing in Enid, they gave us one of their vans. They were rotating out of the fleet. And we got it wrapped, and now it's got, cool pictures on the side of it. And we're doing transport now. So that's the big move. For the large dogs and all the black ones, because in the city of Denver, for instance, they don't have strays. They don't have a place you can go and adopt dogs. They don't have those extra dogs.
We talked about that as a class, but any insight you would have why you think that is?
They have an ordinance. They have a spay-neuter ordinance. If you don't spay or neuter your animal, you're going to have to pay a fee. And if you're going to have a reproductive animal, then you're going to have to pay a fee, because they don't want any puppies or kittens just out. So you pay a fee, and it's a spay neuter ordinance, and that's where Norman, I think, just passed it. The city of Norman just passed one recently, and that will definitely decrease the number of animals that go into animal control and will be available for adoption.
And you would like to see that in Enid or not?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would like to see that. We had a city manager who looked at us and said, "You aren't going to make me neuter my dog," and so we just walked away. Sorry. It was a hunting dog. He didn't want it neutered. Okay, just pay a fee.
Right, so if you want to breed, there's a way around
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was rude. Catherine.
You
Yeah.
say most of your funds are from the grants that you write or from donations?
Donations.
Okay.
And yeah, donations.
And is that mostly around the Enid area, or would you be surprised at how far that kind of pulls out?
We have there. It's pretty wide. I mean, it's certainly the majority is from the Enid area, and thank goodness every year someone's going to give us a large donation. Many times it's because of we're the beneficiary and someone's passed away. We have one right now that's being in process that will probably be about $20,000 to $25,000 that we'll get. 2 years ago, what saved us was a $160 beneficiary that someone donated after they passed away.
160,000.
160,000. Sorry. That's we could have gone under. So we're just you're walking a tightrope all the time, and it gets stressful. Woke up in the middle of the night thinking, I think it's time for me to resign as president. Just done it too long, and I'm thinking that I'm not as successful as I need to be.
But you'd like to have some bigger ones that
that would be
to
lovely.
make the small ones just kind of go further.
So here's another bit. So we need $30,000, right? Well, and yeah, we need $30,000. If we have 11,000 people that like us on Facebook, right? If they gave $3 a month, we wouldn't have to worry about it. If each of them gave $3 a month, we'd be good.
Any big foundations in Enid? Does Coke have a foundation?
No, no, not really. Coke doesn't really have a foundation. So you're, it's animal welfare is totally a female-driven welfare agency, and typically older women. It's the cat lady, the cat dog thing, I guess. I don't know. It's just typically women are the ones who are going to donate the majority of funds to animal welfare organizations.
Any reaction to that?
I just think of like the crazy cat lady themes with the
That stereotype's alive and well, you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. What'd you say, Katie?
I said I'm not shocked.
Yeah.
Like that's
Right? Yeah.
Well, I can see that also if like your kids are moved out, how you like taking care of others, find something to do with your time. I can see that in some cases.
Right. Interestingly, we have a lot of younger families that come in, and they'll bring their children with them to volunteer and read or pet cats or whatever. So yeah, it's bizarre. I went to a workshop once on fundraising for animal welfare, and that was the number, is that 80% of the participation in animal welfare organizations are going to be women, typically over the age of 40. White women over the age of 40. Logan.
I know you mentioned something about adoption, events and stuff. What is that, and how does that work?
So everybody know PetSmart? So not Petco, but PetSmart. So PetSmart built a store in Enid about 7 years ago or so, and they have partners. And so we became their organization that partnered with them, and they have cat shelters or little areas that the cats can be in for adoption, and we'll take animals over there. We also will have this past weekend we had a major adoption. It was pet adoption weekend, I guess, for PetSmart, And at every PetSmart, there was going to be some adoption event all weekend. And so we'll take animals there. We'll go to First Friday. So Enid has a First Friday event downtown on the square. And we'll sometimes have some business that will sponsor us, and we'll do that there. We might go to the convention center if there's the Home and Garden Show, the Farm Show, all of those. They'll invite us, and we'll have an event there.
And you'll take animals, and is that a pretty good way for people to take them home with them?
Sometimes, but yeah. We do it electronic now, so you just have an iPad and you can fill out the forms online and do the adoption that way. But yeah, we'll have just off-site adoptions. But with off-site adoptions, we have to have a staff person there because they're the ones that know all the forms and everything about the adoption because it gets really complex. Austin.
So on your website it said that since from 2010 to 2016 you had an 85% increase in intake. So how many roughly animals do you think, or would you say you take in each month? And then with your spay and neuter programs, like if you noticed that, like a decline in that, like how many?
Good question. Very good question. So we used to think that if we adopted out 35 animals a month to 40, we had a good month. We're now over 100 every month, and that's surprising, right? So we're going to be, might have 100, might have 95, might have 80, might have 120 one month, but so that's one part of your question. Have we seen spay neuter affect intake? We have. So the city of Enid will quantify that at animal control, and they have seen intake decrease. So we used to bring in 4,000 to 5,000 animals a month, or a year, and now we could be at 1,500, right? So you've decreased that. And then let's go to our spay neuter programs. We used to, one year we did, how many did we do? We did 1,000 spay neuters, 600 dogs, 400 cats, right? In-house or at a couple vet clinics. We were done within 8 to 9 months. We'd done 1,000, right? Because everybody was there. We're on probably our last grant from PetSmart Charities for spay neuter for this program. And we're doing, I think, 700, and we should be done in December. We've always been done ahead of time, and this year we probably won't finish that 700 in 12 months because we have so many fewer animals coming in. So I guess you worked the problem so hard that now you don't have the problem as much as you used to. But my fear is that once that spay neuter programs, those go away, we'll have the problem again. We'll see an increase. So, anyway.
Do you think you've created a culture that when a family wants to have a pet, you're the place that they come? Or is that your goal?
That would be us, at least one of them, yeah. So we try to say, rescue's your best breed. What breed do you want to get? Rescue is your best breed to get. And so that's what we try to advertise that many times. We're in Northwest Oklahoma, we are considered the go-to. Actually in Oklahoma, our executive director is requested to participate in any kind of program associated with shelter work. The OSU vet school, the dean, I spoke to him the other day, and he goes, "Oh, how's Vicky?" Because he's been to meetings with her. She is so knowledgeable and just so common sense about it that she's sought after. She could move someplace and make a heck of a lot more money than what she's making with us.
Your director, your manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another question?
free.
Yeah, go ahead, Austin.
When it comes to your adopters, just gonna go back to that, do you guys have any requirements after adoption, like that after for a certain period of time they have to prove that they still have the animal? Is there any like legal repercussions if an animal ever turns back up that you know wasn't adopted that they've abandoned?
Were they microchipped?
That's one thing we do is we do microchip.
So you know that.
Okay.
Right, so we microchipped them. And so when they're microchipped, we have the people fill out a line there, because that's the biggest thing. Microchipping does no good if you don't put your address in, right? And it's all online. So you got to update it. So they microchip the animal. SPCA is the owner, right? Then this person gets them. They become the owner. They change their address. A dog goes away. So do we follow them? No, not intentionally. But if the animal shows up in our system again and is being given or returned to us by someone who wasn't the person who adopted it, and then we ask them, so how'd you get this dog? Oh, it was just running around the streets of Hennessy, right? Yeah, that person who adopted him out isn't getting that back. Good question. And if they're in our if we have them for like 3 days, they're ours. You pay the adoption fee. And here's another one. This is why we want to go through animal control. We have had breeding animals, so a breeding pair of, I'll use golden retrievers that have gotten out, run free. She's pregnant. They get collected by animal control. They go to animal control. They're a beautiful pair of golden retrievers. Everybody knows golden retrievers, right? Anyway, beautiful pair. She has the puppies because she's so far along, right? We take them in. They've been in animal control's care for, however many days necessary. We get them. They're now ours. If the owner comes and identifies them, the previous owner, the breeder comes and identifies them, they can adopt them, but they have to neuter them.
Oh.
And
Is that your
they,
policy?
oh, absolutely. It's the law basically. For us, we have to. When you adopt from us, you will spay or neuter your animal. And so, guess what? They don't adopt them. And there's some anger, big time. Bree, you were gonna say, ask them.
Yeah, that kind of goes off. So, like, my question is backlash. Do you have like any animal activists, maybe not in Oklahoma, like radicals that like they're like, oh, like you euthanize animals, or like there's so many like.
They'll think you're doing something bad.
Yeah, like or like.
Anybody
said
oppose?
They're there for 5 years and you wanted to put that down, but someone
Right.
would be opposed to
Oh
it.
gosh, yes, absolutely.
Like, how do you, so like backlash, like what is the level of backlash?
Facebook is horrible.
I was gonna say, and then like how do you handle that as an organization?
Right. So I've been on the board for 15 years, right? So Facebook wasn't a big thing 15 years ago, and then it's evolved. When social media started, Facebook started up, there were people that would get mad at us. They didn't like what we were doing. Okay, so they'd say nasty stuff about us on Facebook. There was an organization that became a 501c3 too, just like us, that is common in. They are very common in Enid. They're well known in Enid, but they don't necessarily. They don't have staff. They don't have a facility. They don't do the health care. They don't require spay neuter. Right? Our care. You're getting an animal from us that's going to be has been well taken care of. That organization would gripe about things that we had done, and they'd be very vicious to us on, like, for instance, they got an animal and they said, well, you should take it, Enid SPCA. We're full, we can't. Then they would badmouth us. And so we had a big meeting, right? How are we going to deal with this? And we said, we're going to take the high road. We aren't going to respond. We are not responding to viciousness. It's just going to go in a continuous cycle. So unless there's something factually wrong, we won't respond. And so we did that. And so by taking that high road, we kind of are pretty respected. I'll give you one of the most recent ones. So some of the viciousness comes when we have a turnover in staff. Because as you can imagine, you've got animals. You're dealing with these animals. These people are working. They are getting paid less than $10 an hour, right? This is horrible. We don't have any money to pay them anymore, but they do it. For some of them, it's the best job they've ever had because they have this passion for it. And so they feel a worthness. They have worth. Sometimes those individuals have to be let go for a variety of reasons. And it may come down to a clash of personality. And that is when those individuals go online and they can be really bad. And they'll say things. We don't respond. And so by not responding, we kind of have, people just realize that that's, okay, Enid SPCA, they aren't like that. So I think the good word of mouth overshadows the bad word of mouth. I'll give you the most recent one. Decline cats. Right? So decline cats. So we had some staff who got up in arms about decline cats. And they said, we can't, this is amputation, we can't declaw. We have to tell everybody that comes in that adopts a cat that you cannot declaw that cat. Right? Well, we had people on the board that had cats that were declawed.
The drama.
The drama. Okay? And our comment was, it's possible that those cats will never have a home. Like that home will never adopt any animals if they can't declaw the cat. Maybe there's a health reason. Maybe they are older and they have thin skin and, they can be easily clawed. Maybe they have leather furniture, right? And they don't want it injured. I'm just saying, stop. And so what we did, what the staff did is the staff went and listened to, they went and accumulated all the negative information about it, okay? We go to the AVMA and we go to OSU Vet School, say, what is the stance of the Vet Med Association? The Vet Med Association said basically, if it's done as a kitten, it's not as bad. If it's done as an adult, it can cause behavioral issues and can be very painful.
And they're kind of split on it.
They're very split on it, right?
Yeah,
and so for us, our board, we were basically told by our staff that if you don't do this, you guys are causing, this is as bad as, I don't remember what the other one was. It was like pulling canines off of a tiger. And I'm going, okay, so I don't see, anyway. This is the example that we were given in a meeting, right? Very passionate. And we just kind of step back and say, we'll provide factual information. We are not going to control, because we can't, I think you asked the question, do we follow up? We can't control necessarily what people are going to do after they adopt the animal. We're hoping that if they're going to adopt it, they're going to be good people, right? We ask them if they have a fenced yard and a big dog. If they don't have a fenced dog and they want to, if they don't have a fenced yard and they want to adopt a big dog, we aren't going to let them, because that means it's going to be on a chain. Not going to be on a chain. That's not a humane life. That's not one of the 5 freedoms. And we have adopted the 5 freedoms as kind of our thing that we want to do. So, I guess, Bree, yeah, social media can be harsh. But what we found is, just gotta let it wash off. Because if you respond bad, then it's just going to come back and get worse.
Along those lines, we had a little bit of conversation about the spay and neuter and release.
Oh, TNR, trap, neuter, release.
Trap, neuter, release.
Holy mackerel!
Just talk a little bit about the 2 sides, maybe.
So
we don't have time to really
I know,
go
sorry. So trap, neuter, release. It's actually trap, neuter, return is how they're rephrasing it now, because so Oklahoma City has a TNR program. We have feral cat populations, so feral cats self-reproducing, not being fed by anybody necessarily. They definitely are wild, right? They've gone back to more wild type. But we have some people who do feed them, and they'll be called cat colonies, feral cat colonies. And so in some cities, they will go in and, because you'll see it. You may have been there. If you've been in some areas, you know when it's kitten season because there's lots of kittens running across the street. In some of our, many times it's our lower socioeconomic communities or areas within a community. There'll be kittens running all over. And chances are good you're driving by one that's dead on the street, got run over, right? Or it dies of a disease, what have you. So what the animal welfare community has done is say, okay, we're going to trap these animals, we're going to spay and neuter them, we'll clip their ear so that they're identified as being neutered, and then we'll return them to that area that we trapped them, rather than just release them outside the house or outside the hospital. And so that program is hugely controversial because people are saying, well, they're just, they're pooping in our yard and they're getting footprints on my clean pickup, and but then again, we don't have all these dead kittens laying around all over the place.
And it's a town-city kind of problem.
It's a town-city problem.
Not really a rural problem.
No, I think the rural problem, we have predators. The predators are getting the... And I don't mean that by being harsh anyway, but predators take care of your cat population in the country.
And you have, I don't know where bird feeding is, I think it's right after gardening and genealogy, but like the third most popular hobby, and those feral cats love songbirds. They like to sit. My cat Frank likes to sit underneath the bird feeder. It's a good place to eat.
That's why you keep a bell and a collar on it.
So you spend money feeding these birds, and then a cat comes along and eats them all, and decreasing the songbird population depending on...
So on the campus of Oklahoma State University, we have the program Project Catnip.
Yes.
And Project Catnip is where vet students, the OSU Vet School, the pre-vet club, some other organizations, they'll go out, they'll trap, and then they'll take them to the vet school. If vet students can only do surgery on unowned animals, okay, so they can't do surgery on owned animals. So when they practice surgery, spay neuter, they're doing it on unowned animals, right? So that's why the vet school can do surgery on ours. They aren't owned by anybody. They'll do the surgery there. They'll return them. We also have on campus one of the world foremost publication authors on trap, neuter, release and the effect of feral cat populations on small mammals and songbirds. Did you get that?
And you say they can't be in the same room together.
They can't be. That's hard. They were in the same room at one of the library functions, and it was horrible because they can't see. Neither one can see either side. And I try to broach it from the middle, and they're still not. Yeah, it's not good.
We're out of time. Thank you. It's something different than what you do as a professor here.
It is.
I like the idea that when you moved to Enid, you wanted to do something and found this was something that you could be helpful with, and your expertise is something that, particularly with grantsmanship, you can offer some.
We probably have gotten over $750,000 in grant money in the past less than 10 years, and I've written them all. So yeah, so that's kind of fun.
That may be your thing, or again, I can't think when you the name of the organization. Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It's hard to find someone that's kind of opposed to that. It sounds pretty noble. As we've talked through the 5 freedoms, and I think we kind of came away from those saying, I think we can agree that those 5 are pretty good. As agriculturalists, those seem very reasonable.
I'm going to add one last comment, and that is that whenever I am at a board meeting, typically we'll have. If we have a new board member come on, they'll say, ooh, why aren't we a member of the ASPCA? Why aren't we a member of the Humane Society of the U.S.? And I basically say, if you vote to do that, I will tender my resignation immediately. Because I'm an advocate of livestock production. And I find that those organizations are not necessarily advocates of livestock production. And I think we have to have that. I do believe in that as very strongly. And that if my organization chooses to become affiliated with those organizations, it doesn't meet with my my ethic, I guess. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks for your perspective.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Nice to meet you guys. Good luck. All I can say is contribute to society.
Yes, absolutely. And again, for Thursday, if it's not an assignment, I trust that you'll, but please go. I want you to, again, get highlighters and pencils and pens and stuff, but pick out a couple that maybe you just want to know what they're doing, whether you're graduating or not. We want you to be employed, so please go.
Thanks, guys. Good luck. Thank you. Donate. Contribute.
Thanks, Dr. Lee.